My daughter-in-law said I'm in the way. A year later, her husband moved in. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. There are wounds that don't bleed. They sit inside you, quiet and invisible, changing the shape of your heart without anyone noticing. Not even you, sometimes, until years later, when you realize the person you were is gone, replaced by someone harder, wiser, lonelier. My name is Helen Carter, and I am 62 years old. This is the story of how my daughter-in-law told me I was in the way, and how, 1 year later, my son came back carrying everything he'd lost. I became a widow at 58. Thomas died on a Wednesday morning in May, a stroke that took him before the ambulance could arrive. One moment he was drinking his coffee, reading the newspaper, complaining about the neighbor's dog. The next moment he was gone. The house became too quiet after that. Too big. Every room echoed with his absence. His chair at the table, his jacket on the hook, his reading glasses on the nightstand. I would wake in the night reaching for him and find only empty space. My son Daniel called every day those first few weeks. "Mom, are you okay? Do you need anything?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Don't worry about me." But I wasn't fine. I was drowning in silence and memories. Daniel and his wife Rebecca lived 20 minutes away with their 2 children, Sophie, 7, and Max, 4. After the funeral, Daniel suggested I come stay with them for a while. "Just until you're feeling better, Mom." "We have that guest room. The kids would love it. Rebecca thinks it's a great idea." Rebecca. I'd met her 3 times before the wedding, a whirlwind courtship that resulted in marriage and pregnancy within a year. She was beautiful in a sharp-edged way, ambitious, always checking her phone, always somewhere else, even when she was right in front of you. But she was Daniel's choice, and I respected that. I showed up to the wedding with a smile and a generous check. I held my tongue when she didn't invite me to help plan it. I welcomed her into the family the way mothers are supposed to, with open arms and low expectations. "Are you sure Rebecca is okay with it?" I asked Daniel. "Of course. She suggested it." That should have been my first warning, but I was too grief-stricken, too desperate for connection, to see the trap being set. I moved in on a Sunday. The guest room was small but comfortable, tucked at the end of the hallway, with a window that looked out onto their backyard. I unpacked my suitcase, a week's worth of clothes, Thomas's photo in a silver frame, my mother's Bible, and tried to make the space feel like something other than temporary. The first few days were good. The children were a balm for my grieving heart. Sophie would climb into my lap with her chapter books, and we'd read together until dinner. Max would show me his toy cars, lining them up in careful rows, and explaining their names and purposes with 4-year-old seriousness. I helped where I could. I made breakfast while Rebecca got ready for work. I picked up Sophie from school. I played with Max in the afternoons. I set the table for dinner, washed the dishes afterward, folded laundry while watching evening television. I tried to be helpful without being intrusive, present but not overwhelming, grateful but not needy. It was never enough. Rebecca's irritation started small. Comments, really, barely noticeable at first. "Helen, you don't have to do the dishes. We have a dishwasher." "So, Helen, I already bought groceries. You didn't need to shop." "Helen, I'd rather you didn't give the kids snacks before dinner. It ruins their appetite." Each comment was reasonable on its surface, but beneath them ran a current of something else: annoyance, resentment, the sense that my presence was an imposition rather than a help. I tried to adjust. I stopped doing dishes, stopped shopping, stopped giving the kids snacks. I tried to be invisible, a ghost haunting my son's house. but you can't make yourself invisible to someone who's looking for reasons to be annoyed. 2 months after I moved in, Rebecca started making more pointed observations. Helen, did you rearrange the living room? I just moved the magazines to the coffee table. They were scattered everywhere. I like them scattered. That's how we live. I'm sorry, I was just trying to help. That's the problem. You're always trying to help. We don't need that much help. Daniel was in the kitchen, within earshot, but he said nothing. He focused on his laptop, pretending not to hear, and I felt something crack inside my chest. Another time, I was reading to Sophie when Rebecca came home from work. Sophie, honey, come help me with dinner. But Grandma's reading to me. Now, Sophie. Sophie looked at me with apologetic eyes and left. Rebecca stood in the doorway, her expression cool. Helen, I'd appreciate it if you'd check with me before starting activities with the kids. I like to be involved in their routine. Of course. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. You don't realize a lot of things, she said, and walked away. I sat there in the quiet playroom, the book still open in my lap, and I tried to understand what I'd done wrong. I was just reading to my granddaughter, just being a grandmother. But somehow, even that was too much. The criticisms became more frequent. The way I talked to the children too indulgent. The way I cooked too old-fashioned. The way I dressed too frumpy. The way I existed too much, too visible, too present. And through it all, Daniel said nothing. He'd give me apologetic looks, gentle shoulder squeezes, quiet, sorry, moms, when Rebecca wasn't around. But he never defended me. Never pushed back, never told his wife that maybe, just maybe, she was being unfair. I started spending more time in my room. I'd have dinner with the family, then excuse myself early. I'd lie in bed listening to the sounds of their evening television, laughter, the kids being put to bed, and I'd feel like an outsider in my own son's life. 6 months after I moved in, I broached the subject with Daniel. Sweetheart, I think maybe it's time I went home. I'm feeling better, and you and Rebecca need your space. Mom, don't be silly. You belong here. Does Rebecca feel that way? He hesitated. Just a beat, just a breath, but I heard it. Of course she does. She's just stressed with work. It's not about you. But it was about me. It had always been about me. The explosion came on a Tuesday evening in October, 8 months after I'd moved in. I was in the kitchen making soup minestrone, Thomas's favorite, a recipe I'd made 1,000 times. The smell filled the house, warm and comforting, and I was humming while I chopped vegetables. Rebecca came home earlier than expected. She walked into the kitchen, saw me at the stove, and her face went tight. What are you doing? Making soup for dinner. I thought, I already planned dinner. I told Daniel we'd order pizza tonight. It's Sophie's favorite. I'm sorry, I didn't know. You never know, do you? You just do whatever you want in my kitchen, with my children, in my house. Her voice was rising now, sharp and cold. I set down the knife, turned to face her. Rebecca, I'm just trying to help. Stop helping. Stop cooking and cleaning and hovering and just stop. I don't understand. That's exactly the problem. You don't understand that we don't need you here. We don't need your soup or your cleaning or your constant presence. We need space. We need to be a family without you in the middle of everything. The words hit me like a slap. Rebecca, you're in the way, Helen. Don't you see that? You're always here, always underfoot, always making us feel guilty for wanting our own life. We can't breathe with you here. Daniel appeared in the doorway. Rebecca, that's enough. No, it's not enough. Your mother has been living here for 8 months. 8 months, Daniel. When is she going back to her own house? When are we going to have our family back? She is family. She's your mother, not mine. And I'm tired of tiptoeing around her feelings. Tired of pretending this arrangement is working when it's not. I want our life back. I want my house back. I want her gone. The kitchen went silent, except for the bubbling of the soup on the stove. I stood there, the wooden spoon still in my hand, and I felt something inside me go numb. I see, I said quietly. I'll pack my things. Mom, wait! Daniel started, but I was already walking out of the kitchen, down the hallway, into my room. I could hear them arguing, Rebecca's voice sharp and Daniel's voice pleading, but I couldn't make out the words. Didn't want to. I packed my suitcase with mechanical efficiency. Clothes, toiletries, Thomas's photo, my mother's Bible. Everything I'd brought, nothing I'd accumulated, because I'd never really belonged here. I'd just been visiting. Sophie appeared in the doorway. Grandma? Where are you going? Home, sweetheart, back to my house. Why? Did we do something wrong? No, baby. You and Max are perfect. It's time for me to go. But I don't want you to leave. I knelt down, ignoring the protest in my knees, and pulled her into my arms. I love you so much. And I'm not far away. You can visit me any time. Promise? Promise. But I knew it was a lie. Rebecca would make sure of that. Daniel was waiting in the hallway when I came out with my suitcase. His face was stricken, guilty, but not surprised. Mom, please don't go. Let's talk about this. Rebecca didn't mean... Yes, she did, and she's right. This is your family, your home, your life. I've been in the way. You're never in the way. Daniel? I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, who'd grown up to be kind and weak in equal measure. You didn't defend me, not once in 8 months. Your wife has been cruel to me, dismissive, cold, and you said nothing. You chose her over me every single time, and that's your right. She's your wife. But I won't stay where I'm not wanted. I do want you here. Not enough to say it when it mattered. I kissed his cheek, picked up my suitcase, and walked out the door. Into the October evening, into my car, into the rest of my life. And Daniel let me go. My house was exactly as I'd left it. Dust covered every surface, the air was stale, and the silence was profound. I walked through the room's living room, kitchen, bedroom, and each one whispered Thomas's name. But it was mine. My space, my things, my life. No one to criticize how I arranged the furniture, or when I ate dinner, or whether I was too present in my own home. I unpacked my suitcase, made the bed with fresh sheets, and sat in Thomas's chair with a cup of tea. Outside, the neighborhood was settling into evening. Lights coming on in windows, families sitting down to dinner, the ordinary rhythm of life continuing without me. I cried that night. Not from sadness exactly, but from relief mixed with grief. Relief that the constant criticism was over. Grief that my son had let it happen. That the family I'd imagined, warm, loving, grateful, had been a fantasy. The first few weeks were hard. I'd wake up reaching for a routine that no longer existed. No children to make breakfast for, no school pickup, no evening chatter. The quiet was oppressive. But slowly, I began to build a new life. I joined a book club at the library, started volunteering at the community garden, reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage, during my motherhood, during all those years of putting others first. I learned to cook for one, to eat dinner at 7 or 9, or whenever I felt hungry, without worrying about anyone else's schedule. To watch my shows, read my books, go to bed when I was tired. I learned to be alone without being lonely. Daniel called occasionally, brief, awkward conversations where he asked how I was, and I said fine, and neither of us mentioned Rebecca or the night I left. He promised the kids would visit, but they never did. Rebecca had won, completely and finally, and I survived it. More than survived, I grew. I became someone new, someone who didn't need to be needed, who didn't measure her worth by how useful she was to others. The year turned. Fall became winter, became spring. And somewhere in those months, I stopped waiting for the phone to ring. Stopped hoping Daniel would realize what he'd lost. Stopped defining myself as someone's mother and became, simply, myself. It was both terrifying and liberating. The knock came on a Saturday night in November, 1 year and 1 month after I'd left Daniel's house. I was in my robe and slippers, reading by the fire, when I heard it. 3 sharp raps on the front door. I glanced at the clock. 9:30, too late for visitors. I opened the door, and there was Daniel. He looked terrible, thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump to his shoulders. He wore a wrinkled shirt and jeans, and at his feet sat a suitcase. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Daniel?" "Hi, Mom." His voice cracked. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, and he dragged his suitcase into my entryway. It made a heavy, scraping sound against the floor, the sound of everything falling apart. I closed the door and turned to face him. "What happened? Can I sit down?" "Of course." We moved to the living room. I took my chair, and he sat on the couch, hunched forward with his hands clasped between his knees. He looked at everything except me. "Rebecca left," he said finally. "She filed for divorce 3 months ago. It's final now." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" "You're my son. Your pain hurts me, no matter what caused it." He laughed, a bitter sound. "She said I was boring, old-fashioned, set in my ways, that being married to me was like being married to someone from the 1950s. "I see. She said I was just like you." The words hung in the air between us. "And is that such a terrible thing?" I asked quietly. "Being like me?" I didn't think so, but to her it was. To her, you were everything wrong with tradition and family and sacrifice. She said people like us, we live for others instead of ourselves. "We're martyrs," she said, and she didn't want to be married to a martyr. I was silent, letting him talk. She met someone at work. Younger, more exciting, more ambitious. She's moving to Chicago with him, taking Sophie and Max. The children are leaving? Already gone. They moved last week. I have visitation, but... He looked up at me then, and his eyes were red. "Mom, I lost everything. The house is sold. The kids are gone. My wife is gone. I have nothing. You have a job." I quit. Why? Because it was her company, her friends, her connections. I couldn't stay there. So I quit, and now I have no job, no house, no family, nothing. He dropped his head into his hands. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for how Rebecca treated you, for how I treated you. I should have defended you. I should have told her to stop. I should have stood up for you, and I didn't. I was a coward." "Yes," I said. "You were." He flinched. "But you were also a husband trying to keep peace in his marriage, a father trying to protect his children from conflict. Those aren't bad things, Daniel, just insufficient things. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Probably not, but you're going to get it anyway, because that's what mothers do. We forgive the unforgivable." He looked up at me. "Can I stay here? Just for a little while, until I figure things out? I have nowhere else to go." I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, who'd failed me and was now failing himself, who'd learned the hardest way that loyalty should run both directions. "Yes," I said, "you can stay." I made tea while Daniel sat at the kitchen table. The kettle whistled, filling the silence with sound. I poured 2 cups, added honey to both, and sat down across from him. We drank in silence for a while. The clock on the wall ticked. Rain began to fall outside, soft and steady. "She called you boring too," I said finally. "What?" "Rebecca. The night you let her tell me I was in the way. She'd been calling me boring for months before that. Old-fashioned, stuck in my ways. Every choice I made, every habit I had, she found fault with it. And you said nothing." "I know. Now she said the same things to you, called you the same names, left you the same way she wanted me gone." "I know, Mom. I know I deserve this." "That's not my point." I set down my teacup. "My point is that Rebecca has always believed that people exist to serve her needs, that anyone who doesn't fit her vision of the perfect life is in the way. First it was me, then it was you. Tomorrow it might be her children, or her new boyfriend, or whoever has the misfortune of loving her without making her the center of the universe. She wasn't always like that." "Yes, she was. You just didn't want to see it." He was quiet. "Daniel, I'm not going to tell you I told you so. That would be cruel, and you're suffering enough. But I need you to understand something. You didn't lose everything because Rebecca left. You lost everything because you chose someone who never valued what you had to give. And then you stood by while she devalued the one person who's always loved you unconditionally. You mean you?" "Yes, I mean me." The rain grew heavier. Thunder rumbled in the distance. "When you came to my door tonight," I continued, "I almost didn't let you in. I thought about all those months of criticism, all those times you stood silent while your wife tore me down. I thought about how I could close this door and tell you that you're in my way, just like she told me I was in yours." His face crumpled. "Mom." "But I didn't. Do you know why?" He shook his head. "Because unlike Rebecca, I understand that loving someone means making space for them, even when it's inconvenient, even when they've hurt you, even when they don't deserve it. That's what family is, not perfect people living in perfect harmony, but flawed people choosing each other anyway. I don't know how to make this right. You start by being honest about what you did wrong, what you've learned, what you're going to do differently. I was wrong to let her treat you that way. I was wrong to stay silent. I was wrong to choose peace over principle." He met my eyes. "And I learned that being comfortable is not the same as being happy. That marriage requires more than just love. It requires respect. And that the people who love you unconditionally are the ones you should protect the most." "And what will you do differently?" "I'll stand up for the people who matter. I'll speak the truth, even when it's hard. And I'll never, ever take you for granted again." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Then you can stay." The healing Daniel lived in my guest room, the same room that had been mine in his house, now his in mine. The symmetry wasn't lost on either of us. The first few weeks were awkward. We moved around each other carefully, polite and distant, like strangers sharing space rather than mother and son rebuilding a relationship. He looked for jobs half-heartedly, spent hours on his laptop sending out resumes. He video-called Sophie and Max every Tuesday and Thursday, his face lighting up when he saw them, then crumpling when the call ended, and he was reminded of the distance between them. He was grieving, not just his marriage, but his entire life. The identity he'd built as a husband, a father, a provider, all of it gone, leaving him uncertain of who he was without those roles. I understood that grief. I'd lived it myself after Thomas died. Slowly, we found a rhythm. I'd make coffee in the mornings, and he'd join me at the kitchen table. We'd talk about simple things, the weather, the news, plans for the day. Nothing heavy, nothing painful. Just the ordinary conversation of two people learning to coexist. He started helping around the house. Fixed the leaky faucet I'd been ignoring, cleaned out the gutters, repainted the guest bathroom. Physical labor, therapeutic and useful. "You don't have to do all this," I said one afternoon, finding him in the yard raking leaves. "I want to. I need to feel useful." "I understand that feeling." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "Is that how you felt, living with us? Like you needed to be useful to justify taking up space?" "Yes." "God, Mom, I'm so sorry." "I know you are." We worked side by side that afternoon, raking leaves into piles, and something shifted between us. The awkwardness eased. The distance closed. We were becoming, slowly, family again. Sophie and Max, 2 months after Daniel moved in. Sophie and Max came for Christmas. Rebecca drove them from Chicago, dropped them at my door with minimal conversation, and left. The children stood on my porch with their backpacks and uncertain faces, and my heart broke for them. "Grandma!" Sophie hugged me fiercely. She'd grown so much in a year taller, older, with her mother's sharp features, but her father's soft eyes. Max hung back, shy. He was 5 now, barely remembering me. Come in! Your dad's been waiting for you." Daniel appeared from the kitchen, and Sophie ran to him. Max followed more slowly, and I watched my son kneel down to embrace his children, his face transforming from the broken man who'd knocked on my door to the father he'd always been. They stayed for 5 days. We made cookies, watched movies, played board games by the fireplace. We built snowmen in the backyard and had hot chocolate with marshmallows. We read stories at bedtime and sang carols on Christmas morning. It was the first time in a year that my house felt full. Not crowded full, with laughter and love and the chaos of childhood. On the last night before they left, Sophie came to find me in the kitchen. I was washing dinner dishes, and she picked up a towel to dry. "I missed you, Grandma." "I missed you too, sweetheart." "Why don't you live with us anymore?" I chose my words carefully. "Your mom and I had different ideas about how families should work. It's nobody's fault. Sometimes people just don't fit together the right way." "Like Mommy and Daddy?" "Yes, like that." She dried a plate in silence. Then, "Daddy's happier here." "You think so?" "Yeah. At home. At our old house. He always looked sad, even when he smiled. But here he looks, I don't know, more like himself. Out of the mouths of babes. Your daddy has been through a lot this year, but he's going to be okay. We both are. Will we come back to visit?" "Any time you want. This house is always open to you." She hugged me then, soap suds and all, and I held her tight. The spring arrived with warmth and color. The garden Thomas had planted years ago came back to life, and I taught Daniel how to tend it. We worked the soil together, planted tomatoes and herbs, pulled weeds, and watered seeds. "I never knew you were such a gardener," Daniel said one Saturday morning. "Your father taught me. He said gardens were a good metaphor for life. You plant, you tend, you wait. And if you're patient and consistent, things grow." "Even after a hard winter?" "Especially after a hard winter." He'd found a job by then, not as prestigious as his old position, but honest work with decent pay. He was rebuilding, slowly but steadily. One evening in April, we sat on the back porch watching the sunset. The air smelled of lilac and fresh grass. Birds sang their evening songs. "Mom, I've been thinking." "About what?" "About staying. Not just until I get back on my feet, but permanently, if that's okay with you." I turned to look at him. "You want to live here?" I know it's asking a lot, and I know I don't deserve it after how I treated you. But this year, living here with you, it's been the first time in a long time that I felt like myself, like I didn't have to perform, or pretend, or be something I'm not. I've just been me, your son, and that's enough. My eyes filled with tears. Of course it's enough. You've always been enough. Then can I stay? Daniel, this is your home, for as long as you want it to be. He took my hand. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for letting me in that night, for forgiving me when I didn't deserve it, for showing me what unconditional love actually looks like. That's what mothers do. Not all of them. Rebecca's mother would have slammed the door in my face. Then I'm glad I'm not Rebecca's mother. We sat there in the gathering dusk, mother and son, two people who'd lost everything and found each other again. 1 year later, Rebecca remarried. We heard about it through Sophie, who attended the wedding in Chicago and came back with stories about the fancy venue and the expensive dress. Do you hate Mommy? She asked me one evening during a visit. No, sweetheart, I don't hate her. Even though she was mean to you? Even then, hate takes too much energy. I'd rather spend mine on love. That's what Daddy says too. I smiled. My son had learned that lesson well. Daniel thrived in the year since our conversation on the porch. He was promoted at work, reconnected with old friends, and became an active father despite the distance. He video called the kids almost every day now, visited Chicago once a month, and was building a relationship with them that wasn't dependent on living in the same house. And he was happy. Genuinely, visibly happy in a way I'd never seen during his marriage. We'd found a rhythm, he and I. We shared the house comfortably, both of us independent but interconnected. He had his space, I had mine, and we came together for meals and conversation and the occasional movie night. It wasn't the life I'd imagined. It wasn't the fantasy of the perfect family I'd held in my head for so many years. But it was real, it was honest, and it was ours. One evening in November, exactly 2 years after Daniel had knocked on my door, I was writing in my journal, a habit I'd picked up during my year alone. I wrote, "Rebecca told me I was in the way, that my presence made it impossible for her family to breathe, that I needed to leave so they could live their real lives. I left. I built a new life. I learned to breathe on my own. And then my son came back, carrying everything he'd lost, asking for shelter. I could have turned him away, could have told him he was in my way the way his wife told me I was in theirs. Could have made him feel the rejection I'd felt, but I didn't. Not because I'm better than Rebecca, not because I'm a saint or a martyr, but because I understand something she never will. Love makes room. It adjusts, accommodates, expands to fit whoever needs it. Real love doesn't count the cost, or keep score or demand perfection in exchange for acceptance. Real love opens the door, makes tea, and says, "You can stay. Rebecca was wrong about me. I wasn't in the way. I was the way, the path back to what mattered, the bridge between who my son was and who he could become." And now, 2 years later, I look at the life we've built together, imperfect, unconventional, but deeply, profoundly good, and I know that I made the right choice. Not revenge, not, "I told you so," just space, just love, just opening the door when someone you love needs shelter from the storm they created. Life has a way of teaching us what we need to learn. Rebecca taught me that I don't need to be needed. Daniel taught me that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who need us most. And I taught both of them, in my quiet way, that being in the way is sometimes the most important place to be. I closed the journal and looked out the window. Daniel was in the backyard, building a playhouse for Sophie and Max's next visit. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. My son was home. My grandchildren would visit next week. My house was full of love, even when it was quiet. I had learned to live alone, but I didn't have to anymore, and that, I thought, was the truest kind of grace.